I left my husband for another man with money, now I regret it. I never imagined I'd be standing here, staring at myself in the gilded mirror of a penthouse suite, wondering how everything went so wrong. A few months ago, my life seemed perfect. I had traded in a modest, quiet existence for a life of luxury. A life filled with silk sheets, expensive perfumes, and diamond-studded promises. But perfection is an illusion, and I learned that the hard way. It all started the night Daniel walked into the gallery where I worked. He was charming, magnetic, everything Jason wasn't. Tall, impeccably dressed, with an air of power and confidence. When his eyes locked on mine, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Excitement. Desire. Possibility. Jason, my husband, was reliable. Loving, yes. But predictable. We had built a life together, scraping by, dreaming of a future that seemed to inch further away with every unexpected bill or car breakdown. I loved him, had loved him, but after 6 years of marriage, that love had settled into something dull and routine. The passion was gone, and in its place was a constant struggle to stay afloat. So when Daniel swept me off my feet, offering a glimpse into a world where money wasn't an issue, I made a choice. A reckless, selfish choice. "Are you sure about this?" Jason had asked, his voice trembling that evening when I told him I was leaving. "I'm sure," I said, though my stomach churned as I packed my things. "I need more. I need to feel alive again." He stood there, devastated, as I walked out of the small apartment we had shared, leaving behind the life we had painstakingly built. The guilt gnawed at me even then, but I pushed it aside. Daniel's promises were too enticing. At first, the new life was exhilarating. Lavish dinners at exclusive restaurants, trips to Paris, gifts that sparkled in the sunlight. Daniel showered me with everything Jason and I had struggled to afford. For a while, it felt like I had made the right decision. But soon, cracks began to form. The first time I saw it was subtle, a glance from Daniel that lingered too long on another woman. At first, I brushed it off. He was successful, after all, used to getting attention. But over time, his affection for me started to feel less like love and more like possession. I was an accessory, a trophy he paraded around. One night, after another glitzy event, I confronted him. "You barely looked at me all night," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Daniel's eyes flickered with annoyance. "Don't be ridiculous, Lily. I have a business to run, connections to make. Not everything revolves around you." His words stung, but I told myself I was being overly sensitive. After all, I was living the dream, wasn't I? The life Jason could never give me. But then the distance grew. Daniel spent more nights away, coming home late without explanation. When he was around, his touch felt colder, his words sharper. I found myself missing the warmth and safety of Jason's arms, the quiet comfort of our life together, even if it had been simple. One evening, after a particularly cold fight with Daniel over something as trivial as the dinner I had cooked, I found myself staring at my phone. Jason's name lit up on the screen. My fingers hovered over the screen, and before I knew it, I had dialed his number. "Lily?" His voice was soft, familiar. I felt a lump in my throat. "Jason. How are you?" There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing, and I suddenly regretted calling. What was I doing? But before I could hang up, he spoke again. "I'm fine, Lily. I'm doing okay. How are you?" His voice held no bitterness, just an underlying sadness that made my chest tighten. I don't know," I whispered, feeling the weight of my choices crashing down. "I think I made a mistake." Jason didn't respond right away. When he finally spoke, his words were heavy with resignation. "You made your choice, Lily. I love you. I still do, but you walked away." Tears welled up in my eyes. I thought leaving would fix everything. I thought money would make me happy. Jason's sigh echoed through the phone. "Happiness isn't something you buy, Lily. It's something you build. And we were building it together, but you didn't want to stay." That night, I lay awake in the penthouse that had once felt like a palace but now felt like a prison. I thought about Jason, his laugh, his kindness, the way he always made me feel safe. I had left that behind for Daniel's money, for a life of fleeting thrills and cold luxury. But Daniel wasn't Jason. He didn't love me. I was just another part of his collection. A few days later, I confronted Daniel. "I can't do this anymore," I told him, my voice steady but my heart pounding. He barely looked up from his phone. Do what? This. Us. This isn't what I thought it would be. He set his phone down, his eyes narrowing. You think you can just walk away? After everything I've given you? Everything you've given me? I laughed bitterly. You haven't given me anything real. I left my husband for you because I thought you'd offer me more. But all you've given me is emptiness. Daniel stood up, his face hardening. You think you'll go back to your little life with Jason? You're not the same woman who left him. You're tainted now. His words were venomous, but deep down, I knew he was right. I wasn't the same woman. I had betrayed Jason. I had chased after a dream that turned into a nightmare. And now I was left with nothing but regret. I packed my bags that night and left Daniel's world behind. I knew I couldn't go back to Jason, couldn't expect him to forgive me. But I had to try. I had to face the consequences of my choices. When I arrived at Jason's apartment, I hesitated at the door, my heart racing. I knocked softly, and when he opened the door, the look on his face was a mixture of surprise and pain. Lily. His voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry, I said, tears streaming down my face. I was wrong. I was so wrong, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to tell you. Jason stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. You broke us, Lily. You left. I know, I choked out. I regret it. I regret everything. He sighed, stepping back and motioning for me to come inside. We'll talk, he said quietly. But it's not that simple. I nodded, knowing that it might take a lifetime to fix what I had shattered. And as I stepped back into the apartment that had once been my home, I realized that the only thing more painful than leaving Jason was knowing that I may have lost him forever.